Now I can't even respond to that.
Okay.
Today is Moed Katan, Daf Zayin, Amud Aleph, yes, Daf Zayin, right at the top line. And we're actually going to get a few lines in the Ches Amud Aleph. And it's a pretty straightforward Daf, and Yitzhak Hashem. And I promise that we'll be efficient about it. Sarah Mashkin, do we have just to begin without you?
Yes, start. I'm here. I'm all ears.
Okay, Moed Katan, Daf Zayin, Amud Aleph, right at the top. So we said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Huda Omer, Misadeh ha'ilan kedarko, and Misadeh halavan shelo kedarko. That if you have a field that seems to be plagued by rodents, mice, weasels, on Chol HaMoed, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can rid them in whatever the normal fashion is, and we'll see what that is in a moment, from a field of trees, and you can do sort of a partial job on a grain field because they don't cause as much damage. Tana Rabbanan, Ketzad Kedarko. So what is the method of ridding a field of trees from these rodents? Chofer Guma V'tola B'mitzuda. Dig a hole, hang a trap in the hole, and the trap will catch the animal. Ketzad Shelo Kedarko. Thank you very much. How do you trap a rodent with some sort of shinui? No, it's shipu d'maka b'kordum. So what you do is you take some sort of a stake, you bang it into the ground with a spade, and you keep loosening and bringing up the earth below it. And then as soon as you see the animal, you take care of the animal. You take care of the animal. Tanya, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Kishamru mistei lavan shelo kedarko. When they said that in a grain field you can only take care of the rodents with a shinui, lo amru ela b'stei lavan asmucha le'ir. That's only in a stei lavan, in a grain field that is close to the city, because then you're really not at risk for much damage. But if you have a grain field that is near a field full of trees, afilu kedarko, you can even rid the rodents in the regular way by digging a hole and building a trap. Why? Because we're worried about the health of the trees. So he said that if the wall of the garden falls down.
Why is this wheat field called the stay lavan?
I don't know. It's an excellent question.
Because you look out over a wheat field, it looks like white things flying everywhere.
White in the sun.
But so that could be. I have no idea.
No, the Gemara is always it's still
So the end of the Mishnah said.
How do you get it ourselves?
The end of the Mishnah said, "Mekarnas apirtza b'moed v'shvius bona kedarko." That you can fix it on Chol HaMoed, but during Shemitah you can even fix it. You can build it in the regular way. So says the Gemara. We're about 10 lines down in Moed Katan Zayin Amud Aleph. Mekarnas apirtza b'moed ketzim nekarin. So how do you go ahead and fix that in a way that is not permanent? Rav Yosef Omer b'hutza v'dafna. Palm branches, big overgrowth, some way just to temporarily plug the hole. The Masni Satana, and we have a Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph that teaches us Sar Bitzror V'enotach Betit. So you can plug the hole with loose stones. You just can't put a mortar around them to fully secure them. So one of these two options to fix a fence in an incomplete way. Amar Rav Chisda, Lo Sharu Elakotel Agina. This only refers to the wall of a garden. But the wall of a chutzner you build in the normal fashion. Rashi explains why is that because you're at risk of losing a lot, because the chutznerim at that time is where people stored everything. So somebody breaks into your chutzner, they're going to take everything you have. So in order to avoid a hefsid gadol, which is a principle that we've seen all along so far in Moed Katan, you are allowed to go ahead and build a normal wall. So lema mesayale. So perhaps
Even
the
if it's a tircha, you say that.
even dafka, even if it's a tircha yitzera, because if it wasn't a tircha to begin with, you would have been allowed to do it, no problem. That's why the hutz of dafna thing is not a problem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh bidvar.
Amen.
That Shabbos.
So what?
Nicely done.
We're not talking Shabbos.
Wow, that is sweet.
That's good.
Weiter, Lema Messiah. So perhaps the following brisa, which is a Tosefta that we will see again in Daf Yud Gimel, supports this principle of Rav Chisda that you can rebuild the kotel, the wall of a gina. Let's say you have a wall that is unsafe and it's leaning toward and could fall into a Rishus Harabim. The brisa says, "Soser ubona kedarko." You can destroy the damaged wall and rebuild it in the normal fashion. Why? Because it's dangerous. Somebody could really get hurt. So Hassam, the Gemara says, no, you can't prove Rav Chisda from there because Hassam kedaktani time ibnei sakana. There, you have a specific reason why you're allowed to do it because of a sakana, and we had no indication of sakana in our case.
This is also in Chol Hamoed.
This is all on Chol Hamoed. We'll get to Shvius.
Well, no, it didn't say it.
No. So we're going to prove that it is from a little bit right before we get to the next Mishnah. Ve'iked Amrei, and there are some who say that we can prove it from the following. Tashma kosala gochel rishus harabim soser bona kedarko mipnei sakana. There's some say that we have the following brisa: a wall that is damaged and could potentially fall into a rishus harabim. You may destroy it and rebuild it in its normal fashion because of a sakana. Mipnei sakana in shalom mipnei sakana lo, and you can only do it in a case of sakana. So lemitabi tiyuf to the Rav Chisda. So maybe that's a shlug to the opinion of Rav Chisda, who said that you could go ahead and rebuild the wall of a gina, the wall of a garden. Amar lecha Rav Chisda, the cases are not the same, says Rav Chisda. Hasam soseru boneh. Over there, you can do a complete construction job. Get rid of the old. That's right. Destroy the old and build the new. Hacha boneh velo soser. And or in the case of the garden, you can only build it, but you can't do a full construction project. You can't wreck the old one first. Hasamnami listor velo livni. So there too, in the case of the garden, you're not allowed to. Hasamnami listor velo livni. So why not, in the case of a wall that's leading into the Rishus Harabim, why can't you just destroy it and not rebuild it? Why are we so makil? In Cain, says the Gemara, Mimna veloso, so that if you don't allow him to rebuild, he's never going to destroy it in the first place. Amar Ravashi, Ravashi says this must be the case that we are talking about. This Rabbi Pfeiffer was talking about, that this must be talking about the wall of a gina in Rav Chisda's case, Diktani, because the end of the Mishnah says of Shvius bona kedarko, that during Shemitah you could build the wall. So now, in what case? So what wall? Tehecha. If we're talking about the wall of a chutzner, who needs permission to build a wall of a chutzner during Shvius? That's not planting, that's protecting your goods. There's no issue in that during Shemitah. Right. Elalav degina. So we must be talking about the wall of the garden. And even though it looks like you're building a wall specifically to protect and therefore enhance the growth of the produce that's growing there, shmamina, that like the Rav Chisda, that is mutter. Okay, we are to Mishnah toward the bottom of Zion. Because who?
It's not working the ground.
You're not working the ground. All you're doing is building a wall.
Mechzek is something. You would think.
Mechzek, like whatever the equivalent of Mechzek Mavashal is in this case. Rameir Omer, next Mishnah. Rowan es handegoyim lahakil. So this is talking about a case, first Rashi, Klomar, Roa HaKohen negat tzaras, the Kohen would evaluate a tzaras blemish, the moed, anchol hamoed, litaher, for the purpose of saying, no, you don't have tzaras, you are pure, go back to your normal life. Avalo lahachmir. Again, Rashi, She'im roa Kohen shu tamei, that if the Kohen sees that the guy actually is tamei and he does have a real negat tzaras of a haris, whichever one, eino omer klum, the Kohen should just stay silent. She'im mitamo nimtza mitzara b'moed, because if it would say you're tamei, you're causing him saran chol hamoed, it's yotiv v'rachmana amar v'samachta bechagecha. So, according to this opinion of Reb Meir, a Kohen can evaluate a guy. A Kohen can evaluate a guy for tzaras, but he only has one option for a psak. It's either I'm going to paskin that you're tahor, or I'm not going to say a word. Good question. We're going to get to that. Good question.
So he needs to take 0 steps if he wasn't machmir. So if
you can either say, according to this opinion of Reb Meir, The Kohen has one option, two options, one option.
Say nothing.
The only thing he can say is tahor. If he sees a neged saras, he can't say a word because you'll destroy this guy's yontif.
But there,
Okay, so what we're going to get to at the bottom of this Amud,
Let's go to the Gemara.
what are we talking about?
there
Yes.
are three re'iyos. There's the initial
Right.
re'iyah, there's the re'iyah after being quarantined for 7 days,
Esker,
and then there's
Achlata.
another re'iyah.
Right.
we're going to talk about all of those in a second.
What is Re'iyah?
Re'iyah is the Kohen's evaluation. Re'iyah sight. It's the Kohen takes a look at the nega to see if it's saras or not. Okay. The Chachamim Omri.
Hey, Rabbi, at least you know, people here know the going a little bit.
That's wonderful.
That's good, I'm saying, people
That's
here know the going.
The Chachamim Omrim. This is like a 3-line Mishnah, and we can't even get through it. The Chachamim Omrim, lo lahakav v'lo lahachmir. No. The Kohen should do no evaluation whatsoever. The reason that we're going to see later in the Gemara is that the Torah says you evaluate him for this or that, not for this and not that. So if you're evaluating him, says the Chachamim, you got to go all in. So therefore, they say you have no option here. The Kohen cannot evaluate Negayim on Chol HaMoed. Okay, says the Gemara, a repetition in Brisa form of this Mishnah. Rabbi Meir Omer Roe Nesan Negayim Lahakel V'lo Lahachmir. Rabbi Yossi Omer Lo Lahakel V'lo Lahachmir. Why? Here's the reason. Shimata Nezakik Lo Lahakel Nezakik Lo Lahachmir. Because, says Rabbi Yossi, which is the opinion of the Chachamim in our Mishnah, if you are going to evaluate him Lakula and to be Metaher him, you also have to be willing to evaluate him Lechumra and to be Metame him. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe says, Nirin Divrei Rabbi Meir ben Musker, Mr. Stopek, this is what you were talking about, that Rabbi Meir's opinion that you can go ahead and evaluate him, that makes sense in a case where the guy has already been quarantined. V'divrei Rabbi Yossi ben Muchlat. And Rabbi Yossi's view makes sense where he has already a confirmed psak of tzaras.
Why? And you can't make it worse if he's already confirmed.
No.
Very, that's,
Continue it.
Well.
hang on. So why? So in this first view, that in Rabbi Meir's opinion of a Baya Musker, there are two options. You can either make the guy happy, right? You can either make the guy happy, or you make him no worse than he already is. So you might as well evaluate it. Because if he's already Musker, the worst you could say is you have to stay in quarantine.
Yeah.
So that's not terrible. And on the other end of the spectrum, if he gets a tahor psak, he's free. Now there's a yemei sphira he's got to deal with, right? Possibly. Oh no, because he was never tummy. He was just mushroom, right? And Divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muchlat. So in the case of muchlat, Rabbi Yossi's opinion was no evaluation, because in a muchlat, if he says you're tahar, you have to 7 yemei sphira, and if he says you're tamei, you're still tamei, and you have to be outside the Machane Yisrael, and you have to stay away from your what?
He's already outside the Machane.
True, but there's no positive outcome,
Okay, right, okay.
right? Either it's yemei sphira and you're stuck,
And you stop.
or it's tamei and you're still stuck. So there's no good to come of it. Amar Rava. So now you were asking, what case are we talking about? Now you're going to find out the answer. Amar Rava b'tahor kulei amalu pligi delo chazulei. Everybody agrees that if the guy never had a neged saras and was never evaluated on anything, don't talk to him. No evaluation of the tahor guy, because you'll destroy his yantif, right? Because you got a 50-50 shot, let's say, that he's going to be at a minimum quarantined. You're going to destroy the guy's yantif.
Right.
The hezger rishon kulei amalu delo
Don't wanna
pligi.
be in quarantine during.
If he's not already in quarantine.
Right.
The hezger rishon the kulei amalu pligi dechazolei. If the guy's in first quarantine, everybody agrees that you do evaluate him, because it can't get any worse and it can only get better. Either he was never sick and he never had saras and you're matarim and he's free. Or, you know what, you need to stay in quarantine another week. Let's talk next Sunday. Okay. Ki pligi, round the page, Zayin Amud Beis. What is the machlokes? The hezger sheni. This is only if he's in a second period of quarantine. Mar Sabar, this is Rabbi Meir, the Kohen Talia Milsa. Rabbi Meir says, listen, it's all up to the Kohen, right? Because the Kohen just has to be willing to say nothing. So the Kohen has a lot of control. Itahor, Amar le tahor, v'itame, shasik. If the guy's tahor, you can say, you're free. And if not, Kohen doesn't say a word. That's consistent with his opinion in the Mishnah and the Brisa. Umar savar letaharo o letamoksiv. The pasuk says, Kohen, you have to paskin, and you can't be weak. If he's tameh, you got to say tameh. So the Chachamim said, therefore, you cannot go ahead and paskin in a case of Hesker Sheni. Now, Amar Mar, we said yesterday, we said on the first Amud, Amar Rabbi Nir Divrei Yosef b'muchlat v'divrei Rabbi Meir b'muskar, we said that Rabbi Yossi's opinion that you don't evaluate him at all makes sense in the case of muchlat, and Rabbi Meir's opinion that you only evaluate him and be willing to paskin l'tahara makes sense in a muskar. But we have another brisa, v'hatanya ipcha. But we have another brisa that says exactly the opposite, that Rabbi Yossi makes sense with a muskar and Rabbi Meir makes sense with a muchlat. Answers the Gemara, Tanai aliba the Rebbe. We have two Tanaim who learn this mahalach according to Rebbe. Mar Sabrat Sivsa de Alma Adifle. One says that the chevra of the community is better for this person, and for that reason, we do evaluate him. This is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. We do evaluate him, even in a case of muchlat, because he loves his community. And the moment we say tahar, he's back in the Machane Yisrael. Umar Savar Sivsa de Ishto Adifale. And the other opinion, according to Rav Yossi, says, listen, who cares about his community? He'd rather be back together with his wife. And for that reason, we don't evaluate him at all. Because once we evaluate him and we're metaher him, he has to go through Yemei Sfira. And as the Gemara is going to discuss right now, in Yemei Sfira, he's usher to his wife, or his wife is usher to him. They're usher to one another. So asks the Gemara right on the spot. Remember the muchlat.
Muchlat is what?
Muchlat is he has tameh with saras. Vaday tameh.
After the Hesker is Vaday Tameh with Saras. Or even from the beginning, possibly, depending on which Mara it is.
That's a lot of knowledge right there. Do from Mishnayos. Remember the muchlat mutar b'tash mishamita. So are you telling me that somebody who is muchlat, this now remember muchlat, as we just said, Vaday, he 100% is sick with saras. You're telling me that he's mutter to his wife? Says the Gemara in Vatanya, and I'll prove it to you. That during the Yemei Sfira, he has to sit outside his ohel for 7 days. What?
That's muskar.
No.
Hang on. The Gemara is going to say in like 5 seconds. I promise. It's coming right now. Here it comes. Ve'ein ahalo ela ishto. And when the Torah refers to ahalo, his tent, that refers to his wife. Shenamar lechem or lehem shuva lachem le'olechem. And that pasuk is familiar. Right after Matan Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu said, get out of your tents for 3 days. And then he said, listen, go home. What did he mean go home? You can now once again be back together with your wives. Yeah. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shivas Yamim Yisaprulo, that he's got to count 7 days. Yemei Sfiro, he's usher to his wife. Velo Yemei Chaluto, but not during the days when he's quarantined with a Vadai Saras infection. Rabbi Yehuda, however, has a much more machmir view. He says, Shiva Yemei Sfiro, well, if he has it during his Yemei Sfira, which is already on the path to Tahara, Kal V'chomer Yemei Chaluto, when he's mamish tamei, of course he should be ushered to his wife. What are you talking about? Now, we're going to get to the root of this machlokas in a second. Remember, Rabbi Chia, Danti Lifnei Rabbi. Rabbi Chia says, listen, I reviewed this whole sugya before Rabbi, and I said to Rabbi, Limantanu Rabbeinu Yosem Lo Hayalo Uzio Elabi Mechaluto, that Uzziah and Mrs. Uzziah did not conceive Yosem. They only conceived Yosem when Uzziah was a Tzaras Vadai and B'Yemei Chaluto. Amar Lo, and Rebbe said back to him to confirm, Afani Kachamarti, you're right. That's what I said, proving that in Rebbe's opinion, Tashmi Shamita, B'Yemei Chalutin is mutter. So now, what's the source of this machlokas? Because you've got one who says, I can prove you from a Kal V'chomer that is totally usher. What are you talking about? And another says it's completely mutter because that's what the pasuk says. The Micah Miflagi. Well, all right. The Olo thing, okay, the pasuk implies that. The Micah Miflagi. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Galei Rachamana B'Yemei Sfiro. The Kol Shekem B'Yemei Chaluto. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says the Torah told us more specifically about Yemei Sfira, and we can derive from Kal V'chomer that the Yemei Chaluto, he's for sure usher. Umar Savar, Mai de Gali Gali. Umay de Lo Gali Lo Gali. Look, what the Torah revealed, the Torah revealed. What the Torah didn't say, the Torah didn't say. The Torah implies that you are usher to your wife during Yemei Sfira. You are not an usher to your wife B'Yemei Chaluto. What do you want me to do? That's what the Torah said. So that is the end of that brief sugya. L'meimer de b'kohen talya milsa. So we said earlier, in the opinion of Rabbi Meir, the first opinion in the Mishnah and the first opinion in the Brisa, that it's up to the Kohen. That if it's up to the Kohen to say you're tahor or to say nothing. So why does the Kohen have any optionality according to Rabbi Meir? Where does he get that from? So we're going to have two options of how to derive that halacha, and this is going to take us into about 6-7 lines into the top of Chesed Aleph. First, V'atanya. Remember the Kohen Talya Milsa. And yes, it's true that the Kohen has some optionality here. V'atanya, we learn in a Brisa. Uviyom hera ozbo. That's what the pasuk says. And on the day that you show it to the Kohen, yesh yom she'ata ro'ebo, v'yesh yom she'ata ro'ebo. So there's a day on which the Kohen will see it and evaluate it, and a day on which he won't. Mikan amru. So what does that mean? So from here we learn chasen shenolad bo nega, that a chasen, a groom who just got married, who sees a nega tzara, that is potentially tzaras, nosnim lo shiva yemei mishta. We give him sheva brachos, we leave him alone, whether the tzaras is low on his person, ula beso, on his clothing, ula ksuso, because we know that tzaras can show up in one of these places: his bed, his clothing, his home, or on his body. V'chein beregel nosnim lo shiva yemei regel. Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we give him sheva brachos, we give him all of yantiv, and we leave him alone, proving that the Kohen has some optionality into when he actually goes ahead and evaluates a potential neged tzaras. Rabbi Omer Eino Tzarech. Rabbi says, like, that is so complicated. What are you giving me this whole long Torah, Chasan and Yom Heroes? Like, what is that for? I'll give you more direct proof. Harehu Omer, V'tziva HaKohen Ufinu Esabayis. The Kohen says, oh, you might have tzaras? Do me a favor. Take everything out of your house. Because the moment I say that anything in there is tameh, everything in there is tameh. So the Kohen says, listen, I'm going to do you a solid. Get everything out of there.
Yeah.
Right? It was totally an optional move. Right. Ufinu esabayis. Get it out of there. Imam tinu l'dvar harishus, says Rabbi, if we're going to wait for the Kohen on a dvar rishus just to get everything out of the house, kol shekain l'dvar mitzvah. Of course, for a chasen, for yantiv. So now, my benayu, because the halacha is the same. So my benayu, Amar Abaye, I don't like this answer at all. There's no practical halachic difference. They just learn it differently, which is what Rashi says. They learn it differently. Weak. Sorry. My favorite line from Mitzvot Sachoshen. I know nothing, but that seems like a weak answer. Rava says, no, there's a real halachic principle at stake here. And that difference is a Dvar Rishus. And Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's only for a Dvar Mitzvah. So now, Rabbi Yehuda mehasam lo gamrinan. Rabbi Yehuda mehasam lo gamrinan. Rabbi Yehuda. Why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda learn this whole Rishus thing from the Yofinu Esabayis? So says the Gemara, mehasam lo gamrinan the Chidushu. So Rabbi Yehuda does not learn from that case because the whole idea of bricks and clothing getting a neged tzaras, it's a total chiddush. Top of Chesed Aleph will be done in a couple minutes. Because eitzim v'avanim, in no other context do they experience tuma. The whole thing is so bizarre. Tuma tara is weird anyway. So in no other case do we see that. So you can't learn from it. V'hacha mitam.
By themselves, but once they're a keli.
I know, but then they're not eitzim v'avanim. Then they have a shame kli. Then they have stone anyway. Right, and the wood has to have a base kibul, and until it has that, it's nothing.
A beam doesn't become dumb.
Right. So now, but over here they are tummy. So says Rabbi Yehuda, we can't learn from that. So for Rabbi Amar Istrich, now Rabbi says, listen, how very diplomatic of Rabbi. The truth is, you really need both psukim. Why is that? Istrich. If I only had the first pasuk, I would have said, like Rabbi Yehuda learns, that that you can only sort of skip out on the psak for a dvar mitzvah, but not for a dvar rishus. Kasav Rachmana v'tziva kohen, and therefore we have the second pasuk of get everything out of your house to prove for a dvar rishus that is mutter. V'ikasav Rachmana v'tziva kohen. But if I only had the second case, the one brought by Rebbe, excuse me, of a tziva coin, get everything out of your house, have a mina hani de'ein hane in. That only in that case of all the stuff, the possessions in his home, are you allowed to skip out on the psak, the lav tumah de gufe, because it doesn't affect his person. It's not him personally being tameh. Tumah de gufe, but I might think that you have to evaluate him. Therefore, tzricha. We need both cases to prove that the Kohen has optionality no matter what. Ad kan moed katan daf zayin. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.